Hi folks, and welcome to the launch of our new Bean Audit Training Program. My name is Bruce McKenzie from W.consulting, and today I want to take you briefly through the introduction to Bean and how exactly it will work in training up your trainees. Now, to start off with, why effectively we created Bean? Well, if I take myself back to the days when I used to do my training, and it was a fair chunk ago, all the training was done as face-to-face. We'd sit in a room and all we'd do is we'd just learn. That doesn't work anymore when you take a look at the new Generation Z. I mean, at the moment, these are people born after 1995. They're in a digital age. Everything at the moment in their lives is digital, from their phones to their tablets to their computers. All their lives are being run in an online space. Yet we still try and use the same traditional training in terms of educating them. The concept of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take Bean and create something that will interact a lot more with this generation, creating something more media rich, a lot more interaction, and something that will appeal to the way these people will learn. And hopefully we've achieved that through Bean. Secondly, we've also got a message from our clients in terms of budgets. And that is that budgets are very tight at the moment. Audit fees are reducing, costs are high, and everybody's saying, can we not get to a stage where you can reduce the costs without compromising on quality? And we hope that Bean has got us to there. Next thing, time pressure. Obviously, with the digital age at the moment, there's a much bigger increase for people to be more efficient. The problem is that when people are out the office on training, they're not delivering on things, they're non-billable, and that's impacting on the companies. So what we've tried to do is reduce the amount of time that trainees aren't available to the firm to earn money for them. And lastly, you need knowledge now. Millennials want data immediately. And when managers and partners aren't necessarily available, that can be quite a risk management issue when they're out at the client. What Bean does is creates a tool for them that allows them to have correct and up-to-date information at the click of a button. So what exactly is Bean? Well, very simply, Bean is a simulated audit. We've gone and created a company called Candy Limited, and we take trainees through an entire audit, from the pre-engagement activities and planning, all the way through to concluding and reporting. What's really nice about this is that they'll get to see the entire journey. Everything from arriving at the client, what do we need to consider in taking them on, what are the risks in the planning that we need to take through, going through to execution, how you're carrying it out in each of the major sections, and then taking everything they've learned and finally making conclusions and reporting on those. So it's the only place we believe that a trainee can get a complete picture, bridging the gap between what they've learned at the universities and, of course, what people need to do out in practice. The nice thing about it, of course, is that it also downloads onto their laptops, which means it can run both online and offline. Now, many people have asked us, why didn't we run this purely as an online application? Well, the reason being very simply is that a lot of the trainees that you guys will have are going to be out at clients. Well, are we sure they're going to have high-speed internet? Are we sure they're going to have internet access at all? And when all of those things aren't necessarily available, it can limit the learning. The idea of Bean is that it sits on a computer, so that if a trainee needs to do learning at any point, they can click on the button and do the learning. Now, when I say it's offline and online, the online aspect relates to updates. So where a module changes, a new document comes out, something has happened around the program. When they are next online, a little window will come up saying there is an update. Do you want to update it? And if they click yes, it'll download the new materials. So Bean updates itself constantly and keeps up to date with the latest applications, the latest model audit programs, anything new that may come out, but is still going to be accessible offline. So what exactly does it look like? Well, let's take a look at the Bean application. I think it's important firstly to understand that Bean includes a whole range of things, from working papers and caseware files through to completed model audit file that they'll have. All of this is done through interactive learning modules, which they'll work through when they're accessing all of these. And I'm going to touch on each of these aspects as we move through the introduction. Now, the starting point is the home screen. So when you access Bean, you'll click onto the button, open it, and this is what you'll first see. At the top, we've got a couple of things there that will firstly get people feeling more comfortable with the program. The first one is an introduction. Why have we launched Bean? How does it work, etc. And then we've got a video called Getting Started. And the idea of the Getting Started module is to familiarize people with the application and let them get a sense, of course, for how it works. So what I want to do is I just want to show a little bit about that to maybe give you a feel for how this interacts with Candy Limited. Take a look at the following.
Welcome to Bean Incorporated. My name is Nick, and I'll be your audit manager during your time with Bean. Bean is a mid-sized audit firm with network offices in 65 countries. As part of the audit team, we will take you through all the facets of an audit. Let me introduce you to the client you've been assigned to. The client you've been assigned to is Candy Limited. Candy is a manufacturing company that produces and sells a range of sweets. Candy Limited has been a client of ours for many years, so we know their business fairly well. You will assist with the pre-engagement, planning, execution, and wrapping up of the audit. Let's learn about the team you'll be working with. Here is the Candy Limited audit team. Click each of the team members' picture to learn more about them. There are two places where you can access learning materials while learning with Bean. These are in the office and on the job at the client's premises. Most of your learning will be done at the client, but we've got great resources available for you in the office that you can access at any time. Click on the icons below for details. The office library has numerous learning modules focusing on core learning that you may require. The library includes e-learning modules on IFRS and even tips on using Microsoft Office. Most of your learning will be done on the job at the client. Your client learning will be made up of various interactions, including e-learning modules, videos, interactive interviews with the client, case studies, and reading materials. Let's take a look at how you navigate the Bean system to get the most out of your learning. Click the Help button below. To launch Bean, you need to click onto the Bean icon on your desktop. This will launch the program. Note that you do not need to be online to access Bean, but there are certain features that do require internet connectivity. Once the program launches, you will be taken to the home screen. Let's review what you can access on this screen. This is the home screen for Bean. Click onto the icons to learn about the functionality available to you. The learning modules are split into 3 stages of an audit, being pre-engagement and planning, execution, and concluding and reporting. You can access the modules in each of these sections by clicking onto the required stage of the audit. This is an example of one of the learning sections. Click on the icons to learn more about this page. Each of the learning modules covers a different section of the audit, with different interactions. The layout is, however, the same for each module. Let's take a look at the functionality available in the modules. This is an example of a typical e-learning module screen. Click each of the flashing icons to learn about the functionality available to you. Well, now on with the learning. I hope you enjoy your time with Bean. I'll be around to give you guidance throughout the audit. See you at the client.
So that's the getting started portion of what we do. And as you can see, it's very important that trainees have an understanding, of course, of how all the application works and the way it's going to work through. Next up is the audit learning. This is where the real crux of the program happens. So if I go and I click onto audit learning, it then's going to open up those various sections that I discussed. The pre-engagement and planning, the execution, and the concluding and reporting. Now if we clicked onto the execution, this would then take us through to the following screen that lists the execution modules that are available. And there you can see all of them, the assets, the liabilities and equity, and of course the P&L modules that are available. What's nice about this is first it lists all the modules available for their learning, and from here they can click launch module and they can launch any of the modules that they want to learn from. Now each module also has a quiz, which means they can test themselves as they're going through it to see whether or not they've actually learned something. And what I'll talk to you about later in the reporting is you can also see as the training officer what they're passing and what they're not and where the problems are. Once they've done the quiz and if they pass that successfully, the tick box on the right with all the ticks will then go green and they'll be able to track how they're doing for each of the modules. Now within each of those e-learning modules, of course, are all those various facets, the working papers, the audit programs, etc. that I discussed. Now let's take a look at what one of the modules looks like. So let's click onto inventory, and what we're going to do is just jump around and show you some of their interactions that are available there. Let's take a look at those.
Morning. I need you to attend the stock count on the first day of the new year at 5:30 a.m. Sorry it's so early, but the factory manager wants the count signed off before the factory begins working again. Before you go out there, please remember to review the inventory lead sheet and the model audit program. Click the paperclip icon or refer to the Resources tab. Now that you've got the accounting right, can you remember our approach to auditing inventory? Inventory is a debit balance. We test inventory for over or understatement. We test inventory primarily for overstatement. Note, however, that we need to obtain sufficient audit evidence for each assertion, which means that the direction of testing is in which direction. Our direction of testing is from the general ledger. To start, can you tell me why it's important to attend the stock take? That's incorrect. The primary reason we observe our client stock take is to make sure the inventory reflected on the balance sheet actually exists, and that the balance sheet... Note, it is a...
Hi, I'm Mark, the finance manager. How can I help you? We have consignment stock with 2 clients. Candy Can have around 35 tons of dark chocolate, and Chocolate Lights have 72 tons of our hard candy. Thank you for your time.
Let's go back to the model. Let's start by, as part of your inventory procedures, you must calculate the average inventory. What is your expectation for the average inventory days? Having completed your calculations of average inventory for Candy Limited, what were the average inventory days for drink? That's incorrect. Take a look at your calculations and try drinking chocolate. That's incorrect. Below is the calculation of the inventory days for drinking chocolate. The increase... Next, let's move on. Obtain a list of inventories by category at year-end, with comparative figures for the previous year, and carry out the following procedures. A. Agree comparative figures with the previous year's working papers and financial statements. Let's work through the procedures to ensure you complete everything correctly. Now that you've completed your working paper, take a look at the model solution in the Resources tab above, called Comparative Figures Solution. The password for... Next, we move on to the cutoff procedures.
Hi, hope the audit of inventory is going well. I've just finished doing the cutoff testing for you. Please let me know. The following are the procedures I have carried out.
On your desk are the confirmations you sent out to clients who hold consignment stock. Once you've received these and completed the required audit procedures, let me know if there are any concerns that have arisen from these steps. That's incorrect. We handle the confirmation process and receive the confirmations back directly from the third party. Lastly, let's complete the audit program relating to the stock take. That was a lot of work, but I guess you expected that at a manufacturing client with large inventory. Please review the completed model audit program in the Resources tab. Well done, you finished inventory. Remember, you can come back at any time to review your learning should you need to. Let's head back to the office.
So as you can see, these are very interactive modules where obviously the trainee is going to experience what it's like out at the job. One of the things we hadn't showed you there was the complete audit file. And just to point out that each section has, of course, in it, the model audit file, the lead sheets for the section, the model audit programs, which they will review up front, empty, and of course completed at the end of the section. And then there are the working papers, showing them what the model programs will look like, where they've put the tick marks, and the audit work to be carried out. We also, of course, make them work on things like spreadsheets where they do the calculations and have to input those to be marked. So, of course, and that's all smart technology. So, of course, they do get to actually experience it on the spreadsheet. And lastly, we do give them source documents. I think what's important about that is that they get to look at things like bank statements, they get to look at invoices, and they get to actually see what are the things to look for and what should they be auditing effectively and tying up to the audit work required. So it's very much a very practical aspect to what they do. Now here's just some examples of some of the working papers. And as you can see, I've got examples here of some of the work paper that they've done with all the detail. We've also then got the model audit program where they can see what's been done and answer the various questions. And of course, as I mentioned, things like Excel spreadsheets where they get to work through these and see, of course, and prepare the working papers for themselves. So that, of course, the example of the inventory module. And if you can see from this slide, all the various modules that we've covered off. We've got the pre-engagement and planning, which covers off pre-engagement activities. Then there's planning, which we split into planning 1 and planning 2, obviously because of quite a more detailed section. And then lastly, we look at the sales cycle from the point of view of controls testing. Now, for many of you, you've been taking mostly a substantive approach to the audit, but I still think it's important that people do understand how controls can impact on that. So we've got a very detailed module on control testing. Heading into the execution, these are currently the modules that are available. Under assets, they're the usual suspects, your PP&E, your inventory, receivables, investments, and the bank and cash. For the liabilities, we've got payables and provisions, as well as other liabilities, and then your P&L items, being revenue, cost of sales, and the expense side and payroll. The last section we look at is wrapping up. We're obviously concluding on everything we've looked at. We try and say, what should the audit report look like? What do the management reports look like? How's all the information we've got fed into those? Now, it's important to note that these are the modules that will roll out with version 1. As I said, we are planning on amending this and improving it. So if we receive feedback and people need additional modules on X, or we need to put another module in Y, we will develop those and roll those out as part of the updates to the program. I think that's what's important to understand, is it's a very dynamic live program. We will continue to make updates to it. The other thing we've also done is we've also aligned this to the psycho competency model. So for the e-learnings, and if you can't read the slide that's there, don't worry, in the brochure you can see it detailed. We've taken each of these sections and we've tied them up to the competencies that we believe they are learning in terms of the competency model. You can see there the ones for pre-engagement and planning, and then we've also got those for execution and concluding reporting. As I mentioned, in the detailed brochure, you will be able to get all this detail. Now back to the homepage, what else have we got on it? Well, that section I took you through is the audit learning. That's where the majority of the learning happens. We've also then put in a library. Now in the library, we've included things like the IFRS e-learning modules. Now why have we put those in? Well, I believe it's important to understand the accounting before you can even start the audit. I mean, how do you audit a balance that you don't understand how it got there in the first place? So what we do is we tie in the relevant IFRS standards to the sections. So for example, if you're looking at things like property, plant and equipment, in the beginning of the module, there's a short quiz on IAS 16, PP&E, and on IAS 40 on investment property, just to see whether the trainee understands what they're doing. If they do understand what they're doing in terms of that, great, then they move on. If they don't pass the quiz, then what we recommend is that they go into the library and first do the e-learning module related to that section. We think it's important that they understand it. Next thing we've also put on there is we've also put a game. Now don't worry, we're not going to have trainees playing games all day. The idea of this is it's a quick game that takes 2 or 3 minutes just to get their minds creative, get them something refreshed. There is of course a time delay on it, so they can only attempt this every 30 minutes. So if they are doing a module, they wouldn't be able to sit and just play games continually throughout the day. The last thing on that side we've got there, of course, are the ICEs. And what we've done is we've taken the ISAs, the International Standards on Auditing, and we've licensed them from IFAC, giving you an instant access library on the Bean application. So what you can do is you can search here for a specific term, and that will take you into the relevant standard, and you can see where it's applicable, or you can view the entire ISA. It's up to you. Next one we've put in is we've also got a feedback button. I mentioned that we really do value the feedback we get, and the intention of this is the more feedback we can get from trainees, the better. That helps us improve the product and helps improve the learning for them. So we do solicit as much feedback as possible. And lastly, of course, the learning journey for each trainee, allowing them to see where they are on the path and what they're learning. The other thing, of course, to point out is, well, that's great for the trainee. How does this help you as a training officer or firm? What we've done is we've built in a reporting mechanism into Bean. And what the reporting does is allows reporting at two levels. The first one allows you to track it at a company level, which means you can see, of course, the number of trainees you've enrolled, what percentage are passing or not passing various modules, and how many have attempted or not attempted things. So it gives you the ability to get some reporting out for yourselves. That reporting can also be drilled down into an individual level, which means for each trainee, you can get a detailed report on what they're doing, what they haven't done, etc. And most importantly, the number of attempts. Now, what's important to know the number of attempts is you would want to know, I'd assume, that if somebody had tried to get through receivables and had taken them 20 attempts to get through it, well, there's probably a problem there. They probably have somewhere where they need to do a bit more work. So this can also be a great opportunity for you to be able to identify what additional learning people may need. So how do you get it onto your computers? Well, it's simple. All you need to do is download Bean, install it. There's a very simple instruction you'll get, which will give you an activation code. Once you put that in, it will activate the software, and it's then available to them. That can either be downloaded individually, or of course, if you're a larger firm, we can give you the installation file that you can put on your intranet, and everybody in the firm can install it. Lastly, of course, if you're on an area where downloading it can be a challenge, maybe your internet's not that good, we do have USB keys where we can send it out to you on a key, and you can install it on each computer from there. So there are various ways to do it. It is also important to point out that the program currently only runs on Windows-based platforms. So unfortunately, if you are running Apple Macs in your firm, this will not run on an Apple Mac system. Once it's installed, you just need to click the icon at the bottom, and you can launch Bean, and then you can go and do the learning. So in summary, that's the Bean digital learning. It's cost-effective versus pure face-to-face for the training. There's less time out the office because trainees can learn in their own time or downtime. They've got information available to them 24/7 whenever their computers are available. They have access to a model audit file and working papers that lets them refer to things when they're potentially doing sections. And for you, there are trackable reports. As I said, all this detail will be sent you in a full brochure. Now, not to stop there, many firms we speak to are not convinced completely with digital. Whereas Bean is a standalone digital program, some firms still want face-to-face training to either go into more detail on some of the aspects or to fulfill some of the competencies that Psych has done. So what we've done is we've also brought out face-to-face training. And this can either be run in-house or as part of our public training. Now, I think it's important to point out that the face-to-face training is integrated with the Bean approach. The idea being that as people complete modules in Bean, they will take that output and that learning and build on it in the face-to-face sessions. And that's allowed us to reduce the number of days we need face-to-face. So as I say, a prerequisite is if you've done the electronic learning, you can then attend the face-to-face and get value out of the session there. As for what we're covering, well, there's a whole program that runs over the 3 years of a trainee program. The first one, Bean 1, is in the first year, and that's a 5-day program. Clearly, it's a longer program because for many trainees, it's right in the beginning of the year, they're fresh into a firm, and there's a whole lot of things that need to be covered, including a lot of the requirements by Psych and Urban. So all of those will be detailed in there. And I will send you this, as I said, in the brochure with all the additional information there. In the second and third years, there's two 2-day programs. There's a 2-day program called Bean 2 that addresses the issues for the second years, and of course, the Bean 3 that issues them for the third years. What's very important to point out about this is we have mapped these to each of the psycho competencies, so you can see what has been covered. Now, if you consider that our previous training programs used to run sometimes 15 or 16 days over the 3 years, this one only runs 9 days. So we've nearly halved the number of days that trainees would need to be out the office by using the electronic platform. That, of course, isn't just saving you money on paying for facilitation, it's also saving you money that you've got additional days that they're now billable. So this is a win-win on all sides. So what does it cost? Well, you can choose what you want to do in terms of Bean. The first one, of course, is the Bean product alone. And if you just want the electronic program, that costs 950 Rand per trainee per year. If you are then looking to add on to that, the public training, as I said, we've got preset dates where you can send your trainees to the training courses around the country, and those training courses are $12.50 per day, depending, of course, on what you want them to attend. Whether it's 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, the choice is completely yours. If you're a larger firm and you're looking to have something more tailored, so you want to run it in-house, we then charge a fixed rate of $18.50 per day, and effectively you'll be able to go and decide how and when you want to run that training. If you want to look at those, give us a call and we can discuss what works best for you guys. So in summary, you've got the choice as to how you want to interact with this. You can either do Bean as a complete purely digital program, or you can do a blended approach where we take the digital learning and combine that with the face-to-face to give you a complete solution. So when will it be ready? Well, November this year. So Bean will be rolling out in November this year, ready for your 2017 intake. So if you're intaking them in December or January, we will have the program available. We've also already set the dates for the training courses, so you can schedule your guys onto that to ensure that they can still get onto it and effectively get yourselves ready for your training next year. Orders, of course, that are done before 1st of December, we are giving you an early bird bonus, which means you can sign it up for $8.50 per trainee per year. If you have got an interest in it, please do feel free to contact us. We are happy to come to your office to sit down, discuss the program with you. You can email me, Bruce at W.consulting.co.za, or you can go to the website, W.audit.com, and get some information. You'll also notice there is a brochure available, which we've made available to you. Take a look at that, and we can meet with you to discuss that. So folks, we're really excited about it, and I hope you're really excited. We think this is a very innovative way to take on trainee training, and I think will make a big difference in the lives of the trainees and in the firm. So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you got value out of the session, and if you've got any questions, please do let us know.